Hey there! So unless you've been living in a cave for the past 20 years, you've probably heard of Pokemon at one point or another. But just in case you're unfamiliar, Pokemon is a media franchise published by Japanese video game company Nintendo, and it was created in 1996 by Satoshi Tajiri. Pokemon, short for Pocket Monsters, started out as a humble video game for the Nintendo Game Boy, where players engaged in a roleplay-style adventure. The aim of the game is to catch all 151 species, battle your Pokemon, and become the Pokemon League champion! The original versions of the game released in Japan were Pokemon Red and Green, soon followed by Pokemon Blue. Now, quite a lot has changed since 1996, as Pokemon is now the second most successful gaming franchise in the world, only to Mario, of course. The franchise is now in its 6th generation. As you might have guessed, as students studying digital Asian media, we CommentAsian love Pokemon. And because we love the game so much, we wanted to use it as part of a little experiment. Our aim was to capture a first-time experience of popular Japanese media, in this case Pokemon Y, from someone who was relatively unfamiliar with content. This is Sue. Sue is a media professor at UOW, making her an ideal candidate. We had Sue play Pokemon Y, the latest edition of the Pokemon game on 3DS, and asked her some questions about the game.
Have you had any experiences with Pokemon before?
The only experiences I've had would be back in the early 90s when my son started buying Pokemon cards and collecting them. But that's as far as it went.
So you've had no experience with the Pokemon games?
No.
So, you move around with the directional buttons.
Oh, God, you see, I'm hopeless at these. I actually hate playing games like this because I always... Ugh. How do you answer yes or no? Are you a boy or are you a girl? And all you've got to do is go down. No, you have to do that.
Yes, sideways.
Okay. And what do you look like? For goodness sake, none of those. See, I would have given up by now.
Oh, that's okay.
You said you would have given up by now. Why, Sue?
Because I can't stand these things.
Just the handheld system? Or
the handheld
game
system, the little things, the little buttons, and the irretrievability of it, the fiddliness of it. So I just wouldn't keep going. I don't really want to play this, and so my motivation is very low at this stage.
Fair.
So if anything would put me off in the early stage with low motivation, I wouldn't get past the first barrier, right?
Right.
So I just wouldn't do it. Needs music. I presume there's a jack. You know, I sort of feel that I'm missing out on the experience here. Oh, thank God, we're in Disneyland, Asia.
Yep.
Oh, you see, that's not very helpful.
No, it's not very intuitive.
No, it's hopeless. How would you know that to do that unless you were a mad button presser?
So this is where the conversation starts to get really good. And also the point where our camera died. As you could probably tell, however, Sue was not overly excited about playing the 3DS console, but she was quite happy to talk to us about the experience of playing Pokemon X and the lasting appeal of the overall franchise. We took a few notes of what Sue had to say.
So yeah, we've picked out a few things that we want to discuss, and one of the most important points that Sue brought up that we felt was worth discussing was that she felt that she was too late for gameplay.
Meaning because she's aged older.
She's aged outside of being able to learn the particularities of the dexterousness that's required for especially the handheld console that she was playing on with the 3DS.
Yeah, because she grew up in a world where media was very passive, whereas now it's very interactive, and she just hasn't jumped on the boat where she's been able to pick up that and be able to do it.
So Sue felt that various French-inspired references in the first few minutes of the game felt out of place with her assumptions about the game. So I guess she went in thinking that, you know, the game is a Japanese manufactured, made game, you know, from
expecting
Japan.
it to be
She's expecting it to be set in
yeah.
Japan. And she sort of felt that those themes were a little bit out of place. I don't know whether you guys remember.
It required us explaining that the game was designed to appear like France or Paris for her to actually understand why those themes were in the game. She just felt like they were out of place and didn't really get what was going on because she expected a wholly Japanese take on the world, I suppose.
And it was interesting. We found an article who quoted Yoshinda, who is a graphic designer for the Pokemon game X and Y, and he said that often when they design these games that they start out with a setting.
There's lots of sub-themes with it, like you can go to fashion stores and customize your character, and they bar you from going into certain places if you don't have enough style and stuff. There's lots of cafes around. They've definitely set it up to have the French influences. The first 4 generations were all Japanese inspired, but then 5th and 6th have been around Manhattan and France specifically.
It'd be interesting to think why they changed the setting. We're not entirely sure, but it could be potentially because they tried to appeal to a wider international market, especially because you were saying that X and Y like revived the market, and it was the first time that they did a simultaneous worldwide release as well, so that could also be why the setting changed. Another factor could be the fact that France is actually really is Europe's largest consumer of Japanese anime and manga, so I thought maybe, that would appeal a lot to the French audience as well, and they would consume it.
It's quite smart because you've got the well-known internationally landmarks like the Eiffel Tower, which appears in the main city in X and Y. So it's definitely able to be easily seen that it's got French influences, and so they've definitely made a conscious decision to go for an international and non-Japanese setting.
Except that Sue also felt that the French aspects clashed with the whole idea of the game, or what she thought the idea of the game was, which is to be in Japan, and that's what Pokemon is. It's Japanese to her. And then why are we in France? Like it didn't really connect to her idea of the game, and didn't really enhance her idea of playing the game or being able to play the game in a way. So
perhaps that's a generational thing or a misunderstanding of the game. Maybe it was a bit out of context for her, but maybe it works for contemporary audiences.
One of the main points about the subject that we're doing this for is that we're looking at our assumptions about Asian media and then scrutinizing how we experience that, and we found that lots of people had an East versus West approach subconsciously, and I think this is just a big example of where that's come to a head, where you've got a multicultural, diverse range of influences coming together to create something that was made in Japan, but people expect it to appear as just Japanese as opposed to global.
We quizzed Sue on what factors she thought had helped to make the game so successful as a franchise internationally and for such a long period of time. You have to remember that Pokemon's been around since 1996. She responded by pointing out that the cute factor of Pokemon might have something to do with the game's lasting appeal, which I agree with.
Yeah, there was a point in early development where they were going to make Jigglypuff, which is the pink round thing,
so cute.
They were going to make that the main character over Pikachu, and they ended up having it as an important character, and it's appeared in other media, like when Pokemon's
It's actually my
appeared in
favourite
other
character in Pokemon.
Yeah. Me too.
They were definitely aware that they were going down the kawaii path from a very early point, and definitely set out to get that influence in the mind's eye of its consumers.
I think they probably did that to start off with because it's a game marketed at children, but I can understand why a larger audience has appreciated the cute factor. In Pokemon, that's probably
because who doesn't like something that's cute, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, everyone loves cute things. They definitely tie that in with gameplay as well, with various things like they've had areas where you can only go with cute Pokemon, and so they're aware of the fact that people prefer the cute Pokemon, and it's evidenced in almost every facet of the gameplay.